Hi everybody, this is Dale Wilshire, and in my last blog post I talked about my own personal journey with my personality and how I didn't like who I was for a long time. Then I tried to be someone else, which is something women often do. For me, it wasn't very effective. I was never very good at it, but hey, I gave it a try. But I can stand here today and tell you that I like my personality. I like who God made me to be. I think for the very first time, I understand it. I see myself through a lens of strengths rather than just weaknesses. I see what I offer others that the other types can't. I see why God made me like I am, and I appreciate what I get to do on His behalf. And that is what I want for you. I'd love for you to be able to say, I like my personality. I like what I reflect about God, and I like who I am. So we're going to do that through an understanding of the DISC. This is a 4-type personality system. We've got D's and I's and S's and C's. And I'm going to define it today a little bit differently. I'm going to start with categories. In the next blogs to come, I'll do it more individually, but I'd still like you to understand the 4 types and what their priorities are and how they're different than the others. So let me just define the 4 types first. So D stands for direct and determined and decisive. I stands for inspiring and influencing and interested in people. S stands for stable and steady and salt of the earth. I would also say service-minded. And C stands for correct and conscientious and controlled and cautious. So those are briefly what the 4 types are. But let's look at this in terms of categories. So thinking about the grid, let me start on top. So at the top, we've got D's and I's. Those are your classic extroverts. Extroverts are not just energized by people. They also are very active in nature. That's the way I'd like you to think of extroverts. They are active with their voice, they're active with their hands, with their feet. They're always in motion with all that energy. They are expressive, they are energetic, and they are outgoing. That's what they have in common. They love to get out there in the public. They love to be able to tell you what they're thinking, they're directive. They like to be able to say what they're feeling. In fact, the moment something comes into their mind, they typically share it in a public way. Get themselves into trouble all the time. But that's a kind of a raw, unedited view of what they're thinking. You're going to hear about it. It comes out. If they're feeling pain, you're going to hear about it. Every one of my labors, everybody knew up and down the hall. The lady next to me asked for me to be quiet. I told her to get an epidural. The extroverts, they're fast. They talk fast, they walk fast. Like I said, they're highly energetic. They're just always moving. Now, one of the things I hear about extroverts all the time is that they're showy. The need to be public looks narcissistic or self-centered. But let's not forget in Matthew 5:14 through 16, that we are told that we're the light of the world. Jesus said we're to let our light shine before men so that they may see our good deeds and give glory to our Father in heaven. Okay, the 2 on the bottom. These are your introverts, your S's and your C's. So they're private in nature. They hold on to their thoughts. They don't necessarily speak up. They hold their emotions tight. We don't always know what's going on inside an introvert because they're private in nature. They also absorb pain. They don't necessarily inflict that on other people. They're very quiet in nature. They talk more quietly. If you know Jerry Seinfeld, the low talker is probably an introvert. These guys move slower. I'd say more deliberately. They're not just like the tortoise who can't seem to move quickly. They are thinking through what they're doing before they act. They think before they speak. They typically think before they act. They don't want to make a mistake. They also want to maintain stability, and so they're slower in nature that way. And while it's easy for extroverts to say you got to be out there and these guys are too far behind the scenes, but let's remember in Matthew 6, we're told to be careful not to practice our righteousness in front of others to be seen by men. You see, there's some verses that are really easy for some types and really hard for others. That's the nature of your type. Some things will come easily to you and some things you will need to cling to God for His help. That's the way it's designed. Okay, let's look at the other designation, the other categories. And that, instead of top and bottom, let's look left and right. On the left, we have D's and C's, and they are task-oriented in nature, which means tasks and jobs and responsibilities will always be their top priority. In fact, how they love you and care for you is by what they do for you. If love is divided into two areas, truth and grace, this side is the truth side. D's and C's represent the truth of God's love. It feels a little harder, but actually it's just simply more defined. These are the boundaries. These are the rules. If you only have truth, though, it can feel mean. You need grace to go with it, but this still is a structure that is important in the concept of love. Another thing that's interesting about D's and C's being task-oriented is they see the world as unfavorable. D's see life as a series of challenges to be overcome, and C's see life as a series of dangers to be careful or to avoid or to protect against. And it's easy to judge this type and think, where's your heart? Where are your feelings? You can't be loving if all you're focused on in the tasks. But remember, in James 2, we're told that faith without works is dead. There must be action tied with our hearts to be able to show that what we believe is real. So let's look at the other side, the right-hand side. These are the I's and the S's. They are people-focused, different than task-focused. They're always going to prioritize the relationship. They could be in debt $100,000. They could lose their job. They could have tickets galore. But if people like them, it's all great because they are focused on the relationships. These are the ones that are on the grace side of truth. They are forgiving. They are accepting, very loving. But we must be careful because too much of that becomes license, meaning people are accepted over and over again, but they never change. They never grow. They never get better. And it can become enabling. So we do want to watch for that. But this is the group that sees life as favorable. Everything's going to be okay. Everybody's wonderful. The other two are like, man, you have no standards. If everybody's wonderful, come on. But they're like, yes, everybody's great. You can't believe who I met today. They were so great. And the verse that I like to use here is from Romans 12:10, when we're told to be devoted to one another. We are supposed to have actions, but we're supposed to have a heart for people. So I hope you found yourself in the introvert, extrovert, and the task and the people. Again, next time I'll go into a lot more detail on each one of these, but I hope it gives you an understanding, a little bit more of why you do what you do and what the blessing is and who you are. Because I long for everyone to live out of their authentic personality.